puts these on for the whole network. We've had a lot of benefit from these webinars over the last couple of years, and I can remember doing the first one a couple of years ago where I was very nervous about the technology, and now we have people running them virtually every day of the week in our business. So it's fantastic to be here on this team webinar. And what I'm going to cover tonight, I'm going to do some training on this training is called Visions of a Better Future, and that's quite appropriate for those of you that don't know our story. When we joined the business, we were not in a very good financial situation, so we needed to have a bit of vision and a bit of hope that the situation could get a little bit better. And so this is called Visions of a Better Future, and I'm going to cover details of how you can get to Dubai and also why you should get to Dubai. I'll try and cover that as well, because the why is probably more important, certainly more important than the how. So I'm going to go through some stuff which I hope you find valuable for about half an hour, and let me just go straight away to the next slide. And this is kind of where we started. Now I'm not going to go into the whole story again, but in terms of where we were when we joined the business, I was working in corporate medical insurance. I used to work about 60 hours a week, and I used to drive about 1,000 miles a week. Didn't really have a very good lifestyle. Had what some people would call a good income. My salary back then, my gross salary, was about 45 grand a year, and I've now taken to saying that it was pretty gross actually, because I used to lose about a quarter of it straight away in tax. So my net pay wasn't that brilliant considering the amount of hours I was working. And we joined Clean Easy because we needed extra money, like most people. As Andy said, we needed an extra £300 to £400 a month, or at least that was the extent of my ambition back at that time. But the reason for that was that we were actually in a very difficult financial situation. We actually were in about £100,000 worth of debt, and I had a repossession order on the house, and people were threatening to take me to court for various things. I had people chasing me for money all around the country. So what happened was we joined Clean Easy very tentatively, more in hope than expectation, and we put our catalogues out, but straight away we could see that people ordered from the catalogue. And I had been in another network before Clean Easy, and I got more volume in a week in Clean Easy in orders than I had in the previous 12 months in the other network. So I did, in my mind, I kept thinking, this works, this actually works, people buy from the catalogue. So I went to a meeting and I met some people at a meeting who were making way more money in Clean Easy, and certainly had a much better lifestyle than I had. I met people like Gary Watson, and I also met Alan Moffat, and then later Rob Foster, and these people were making, you know, upwards of £5,000-6,000 a month. And then later I met Gavin, who was making much more than that. So it quickly became apparent to me that this was something I had to give my best efforts to. And I suppose I didn't really struggle with motivation. I didn't really, you know, lack a sense of urgency. So if you're wondering, you know, how to get motivated, then all you really have to do is get yourself in about 100 grand of debt, get a repossession order on your house, and you'll find that you'll be able to get out the front door with the catalogues, no problem at all. So what we did after a couple of months in the business, my wife left her job, Karen left her job, and she used to do the catalogue distribution in school hours. And the title of this slide, as you can see, is Unshakable Belief. And the reason for that is that we put out a lot of catalogues. She put out a lot of catalogues in school hours. She actually retailed £3,000 a month, every month, for the next 6 months in the business. And what that did was that gave us a massive belief in the business, and we were able to, you know, establish in our own minds that there was money to be made. And I was very conscious of the fact that anyone could have joined the business and put out those catalogues. Karen actually put out 200 catalogues a day, 5 days a week in school hours. She used to drop the kids at school and then put out 200 catalogues straight away at 9 o'clock, and then collect 200 in till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. and doing that she actually made about £1,000 a month just from the catalogue distribution. And so we had unshakable belief in the business, and we were very conscious of the fact that anyone could have joined our business and in that area put the same number of catalogues out and made the same money. And we had other people in our area. We had other distributors very locally. There was one established distributor and who already had a customer base, and there were a couple of other people blanket dropping in exactly the same areas as us. But that never, put us off in any way at all. In fact, we picked up a lot of customers in the local area, and one of the customers actually said to me, "Yeah, we want to stay with you because the other woman that comes round is she's a miserable cow." That's what this customer said to me. So there's my first tip on the retail part of the business, is don't be a miserable cow. Or if you are a miserable cow, please just do that at home. Don't do that in front of your customers. Because people came to us and stayed with us because they didn't really want to do business with the other distributor. So that was quite interesting. But we got stuck into the retail, we made immediate income, and we started to sponsor people into the business and get people plugged into the system. Now, at that time, I was working full-time in my job, and I did that until I was bronze exec. Took me about 20 months of team building, of active team building, to get to bronze exec. And if you're new in the business and you don't know what a bronze exec is, what it basically means is two separate businesses in Clean Easy turning over £10,000 of orders. So our turnover reached about 30,000, and my net income in Clean Easy was about £2,500 a month. And at that point, we qualified for Monaco and we qualified for Cairns in Australia. And when I came back from Cairns in Australia, which was an amazing trip, very inspiring trip, with loads of fantastic people. We spent some time down there with Rob Foster and people like that, people that were making serious money in the business. And I just decided when I got off the plane that I couldn't work for anybody else ever again. So I got in my car from the airport, drove straight to my boss's house and said to him, "Look, you can keep the job. I don't want to do it anymore." So I left my job, and at that time I was used to driving very nice company cars. I had company BMWs, company Mercs, and in the last job I actually had a company Audi, an Audi A4, which was quite a nice car. And the picture you now see is what I got instead. And because I didn't want to have more overhead, I didn't finance a car. Well, I probably wouldn't have been able to finance a car anyway. I don't think anybody would have lent me the money. But I went and got a £500 Austin Montego, if you're not familiar with this particular model. And as you can see, it had car stickers all the way around the car. And I was really proud to be associated with the Clean Easy opportunity. And when I used to go and see people to show people the business, I used to drive right up their drive and get right in their face so that they could see my car, and which probably on reflection wasn't such a good move, because quite a few people said to me, "I won't have to have my car done like that, will I?" I said, no, it's no problem at all. It's optional if you have the car sticker. But I did sponsor, interestingly enough, quite a few people from those car stickers, and at no point did anybody ever ask me, why are you driving such an awful car? And if you actually look at the picture, you can probably see that it's quite rusty. And Karen actually refused to get in the car, and only ever got in it on one occasion. And on that particular occasion, unfortunately for me, the suspension went, and we literally bounced all the way down the street. It used to stink of petrol, and it wasn't a very nice car. But I loved it. I thought it was brilliant, and I didn't really care, because I was building my future, and I had a vision of my future, and I didn't really care what other people thought. So maybe there's some value. Maybe there's some value in that. I just didn't give a monkey's what my negative relatives thought, what anybody else thought, what the neighbours thought, what people that I used to work with thought. It didn't really matter, because I knew that I was going to build the business, and I was going to get stuck in and give it my best, come what may. So that was kind of like where I was at that point. Now, just moving on from that, um, to bring you more up to date. Since then, we've actually been fortunate enough to be on 12 overseas conferences in 14 years. Oh, by the way, Andy made a reference there to things that were happening in Miami. Some rumours about me in Miami. I deny everything. I deny everything. But we had some fantastic times, and Miami was exceptionally good. But I thought more about the relevance of Dubai and the Maldives, because just going back to those early days in the business when we qualified for Monaco and Australia, I can promise you that I was working very hard in my job, very long hours in my job. I was an account manager of an insurance brokerage, and I used to have to travel up and down to London on a regular basis, and I didn't have much time, but I had a lot of energy for my Clean Easy business. And when I finished my day's work in my job, I did used to get tired in my job, but I was totally single-minded and focused on building the business. And in those first 20 months of my Clean Easy business, it's probably true to say that qualifying for Monaco and Australia was one of the most important things in my life. And I did put everything else to one side. I didn't spend a lot of time outside of work in recreation or leisure or visiting my negative relatives. I just didn't. I just worked. When I wasn't working in my job, I was working my business, and I put as much energy into my business as I could, and I valued my business far more highly than the job, which paid me 45 grand a year and gave me a nice company car and extra benefits and status. I valued my business with my £500 rust bucket car and my relatively small checks. I valued my business far more than my job, and I think that if you want to get to a better future, if you want to create your own vision of your own better future, you need to kind of adopt that single-minded focus on qualifying for Dubai. And it's not really just the trip itself, it's not the holiday and the 5-star luxury and all the food and all the alcohol and the excellent company that you will enjoy when you're there, although those things are very, very important. It's not really that. It's basically, if you are trying to build a future, if you want residual income, if you want financial independence, if you want to escape the rat race, if you want to sack your boss, or if you just want to be able to go on holiday when you like, if you want to be not, having to be answerable to your bank manager for the rest of your life, you need to qualify for Dubai. So Dubai is just a signpost. It's just a marker on the road to your better future. So I would say that it's probably, for me, it's the single most important thing you should aim for in the business. And it doesn't matter whether you like traveling or flying and all that kind of stuff. You just need to make sure you get yourself on those trips. So the first thing that became apparent to me in the business is that people need to understand the difference between positive and negative. And this kind of sounds like a pretty obvious sort of safe sort of statement, really, but what I mean by that, I'll give you an example, very basic example. At the ground floor level of the business, if you go out and put out a couple of 100 catalogues in the daytime and you only get back, let's say, 120 catalogues the first time you go, it depends really how you view that and how you filter that information. But a lot of people might get a bit negative about that and say no one put the catalogue out. The sort of thing new distributors will say to you is no one's putting the catalogue out. Whereas I was talking to a new distributor the other day and she said to me, oh no, that would be a great opportunity, because then you'd have to knock on the door and you get an opportunity to actually meet your prospective customers. And I thought, absolutely brilliant. She's got a positive attitude, she'll do really well. So it's understanding the difference between positive and negative and how we process information is all important. I think it's really, really, it sounds obvious, but we're constantly bombarded by negative influences, negative people, and my advice to you, closely related to that, is to be very careful who you listen to. And I used to go to family barbecues. We don't go to them so much now, actually, funnily enough, but there was always one guy at a barbecue, and he used to say to me, "So you're still on your way to your first million, are you?" And we don't go to them very often now, but this guy still says things like that to me. And the main difference now is I say, yes, I am actually. But in the beginning, that can actually, it doesn't do you any favours. So my advice would be only share your goals and your aspirations with people that will be supportive of you. And that means usually people in your upline, people that are already successful. So be very careful who you listen to. Yeah, both in the business and outside of the business. I also went to lots of meetings in those early days, and there were plenty of people at meetings who would talk about how it couldn't be done. But I always believed that it was better to listen to people like Gary Watson, who was basically doing really well in the business. So I made sure that I got around the people who were making it happen. I wasn't going to spend much time in the bar at meetings listening to people who were telling me it couldn't happen, and there were people like that even in Clean Easy meetings. So be very careful who you listen to. Now this is a simple example of how you can set a goal to get to Gold Distributor and be in qualification for Dubai, and it's based on what we call planning backwards, which means, to quote Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, we begin with the end in mind. In other words, you think about where you want to end up, and then you plan it back from there. So if we're talking about getting a Gold Distributor business, it's really a turnover of let's say £10,000 of orders. Just have a sip. This is water, by the way. It is definitely water. Let's say we're aiming to get a turnover of £10,000 in a 4-week period, and what you want to do is set yourself a date when you want to achieve that goal by. Now, to give you an indication or an idea, obviously everyone is in different circumstances, and I understand in some cases there might be 2 people, like a couple working in the business, who might have no children, and then you might have someone else who's a single parent with children who might have less time and more family commitments. But it doesn't really matter, because we know that once a person actually makes the decision to build the business, that people make a habit of getting to gold once they've made the decision certainly within 3 to 6 months, and quite often within 3 or 4 months. And in our case, I remember going to a conference which was in Nottingham, and I bumped into Gary Watson, and he said to me, "So when are you going to be gold?" And at that time, in that January, there was only me in my business. There was no one else in my business. And I said to him, "I'm going to go gold in period 4. And sure enough, we went gold in period 4. So maybe there's a tip there. Maybe you should share your goals, go public on your goals with your upline and with other significant people in the business. So let's set the goal now, tonight, for you to go Gold Distributor. First thing you need to decide is when are you going to be a Gold Distributor. And let's say it's 4 periods time. Bear in mind we're coming to the end of period 12 in the blue group, so the red group are kind of getting going in the period 12. So you've got period 13, period 1, period 2. So you could set a goal, for example, to be a Gold Distributor by period 3. So you're right in the column there with the date, period 3, 2013. And we know, because these facts are known, that if we have 15 to 20 active distributors actively putting out catalogues, we know that will usually give us gold volume. So we then need to plan backwards, period by period, from period 3 backwards to period 13, and put the date by each one. So in other words, if you want to be 21%, let's say you wanted to go 21% period 1, 18% period 13, period 2, and then period 1, and then 15%, say period 13, and you just plan it backwards by the number of active distributors. So if you're just getting started now and there's only you in the business, you just need to make sure you've got a plan and a strategy to get some people in your business in the next 4 weeks. It shouldn't be that difficult, because there's about 30 million skint people out there looking for money, for extra money for Christmas, and then after Christmas you have the potential, the biggest influx of people, because everybody overspends at Christmas. So it's the best possible time that you could have to bring people into the business, and it's also unique at the moment because you can bring them in with 250 catalogues for only 50 quid, which brings me on to my next slide. But just if you're not sure how to do that, just ask your upline distributor who's been on some trips to ask how you set a goal and then plan it backwards to the current date. Now the next thing is we also need to use some business intelligence, and this is something which the company produced. These are not my figures, these are produced by CleanEasy, and this graphic shows the difference in volume between the Business Builder 250 kit, 200 kit and Break Free, and as you can see there's a very substantial difference, and it makes sense, I would say, to bring as many of those 15 to 20 people in on the Business Builder 50 kit. But the key thing about that is to sponsor those 15 to 20 people fast into your business, so i.e. over a 3 to 4 month period, and if you do that you have an outstanding chance of qualifying Gold Distributor and being in qualification for Dubai. So 15 to 20 people on Business Builder 250 kits. If you're not sure how you do that, you just need to speak to someone else who's already doing it, but it can't be difficult to show people how to make an extra 300, 400, 500 pounds a month with an opportunity to develop much bigger income and to get them started for 50 quid. It can't be difficult. It must be easier today than it's ever been in the history of CleanEasy. We live in a country which is about 1.4 trillion of debt, and most people that are employed working in jobs are living from paycheck to paycheck with no disposable income, no assets, no money in the bank. So there's a huge number of people that you can reach and show a simple idea how they can increase their disposable income. So my advice would be to get people in on the 250 kit. Now, what happens when we get those people on board is we're going to get a real broad mix of different characters joining our business, and some of you, I'm sure, will already have noticed this, but if you're brand new, for the benefit of the new people, some people I know get discouraged when people join their teams and they don't always do exactly as they're being advised to do. But this is perfectly normal. This isn't a new thing. It's not a new phenomenon. It's been around for as long as I can remember. But this is a training, or a part of a training, that I saw Gary Watson do back in the early days of the business, and I believe it originally came from Roy Japp. It may have come from Roy Japp's upline, but this is what will happen. This is what Roy Japp said would happen if you sponsored 10 people, and he said that what you would get is a clever dick, 2 liars, 1 amagona, which is someone who says, I'm going to get the catalogues out one of these fine days. And you know the sort of people that join your business and you ring them up and you ask them how it's going, and they say, oh no, I haven't put the catalogues out yet this week, I couldn't do it this week because the budgie died, and I'm going to do it next week. And then you get to next week and then something else comes along which interrupts them in their progress. So this is just how it is. It's just people, really. You also get one who hits the figures. This has also been renamed as a magician, someone who disappears, and some of the distributors that you bring into the business, you may have noticed, kind of disappear off the face of the earth immediately after buying the kit, and then suddenly they kind of reappear, and they put an order on and they hit the figures, and you just wonder why is it happening. But he also said the good news. Let me get to the good news now. The good news is he also said that you would get 1 aspiring gold distributor and a couple of serious people, and they're people that will come to meetings, attend webinars, put the catalogues out, listen to Easy Reach, whatever your system is. But the point of this slide is to make you aware, if you are new, is that you won't get 10 people like that. You just won't. And I remember I was in a meeting recently and I said to Bob Webb, Bob, have you ever sponsored 10 people that duplicated you? And he said no. And you'll never find 10 people in a row that will duplicate you. It just won't happen. It is a numbers game, so you have to be constantly recruiting people and exposing people to the opportunity. But it's inevitable that if you keep doing it, you will find good people. So next part of the thing is, what do we do when we get those people into the business? Well, one of the things which is really, really important in our business is recognition, as I'm sure you're all really, really aware. And one of the things that we've kind of developed in the last couple of years in our group, which works really well, and I must thank Andy Boswell for this, is that we do run a lot of these webinars. And what we've managed to do is we've managed to sponsor people literally the length and breadth of the UK. We have people, for example, in Northern Ireland. We have people doing really well up in Skye in Scotland. We've got people in Inverness. We have people in London. We have people in Birmingham. Literally the Cornwall. You know, the four corners of the UK. And one of the things that we've been able to do is we've been able to coach them in a system and recreate the sizzle by running lots of webinars, and also we do a lot of Skype calls as well. And one of the consequences of that is we're able to get people involved in our system, and we give them a voice, and we invite people to take part in the webinars, and they do little mini testimonials, and quite often they're very nervous in the beginning, and as most people are with any form of, you know, public speaking. But, you know, usually after a couple of goes, then they're supposed to speak for 5 minutes, and they take 15 minutes, and you can't get them off. So we actually give people a voice, and we build team spirit by recognizing people's achievements. So one of the big things that we're able to do using new technology, using webinars, is we're doing something which is basically fundamentally old in the business, which is we're involving people in the business, we're exposing people to the system of the business and the scope of the opportunity, and we're allowing them to upgrade their thinking. So it's involve, expose, upgrade. It's in the 45-second presentation if you're not familiar with that, but it's an old idea, but it's something we've managed to do very, very well in the last couple of years through the use of webinars. So I'm a big fan of webinars, and there are webinars going on most nights of the week in our business. So there's maybe a tip of how you can look after people. Now here's a little bit of philosophy. I need to speed up actually, I think I'm going to run out of time. Here's a bit of philosophy from Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn says it's not what happens to you that determines the outcome, it's what you do about it and what you learn from it. And that's a picture of us getting a new Mini Cooper, as Andy said. And when we were in 100 grand of debt, we could have easily thrown in the towel, gone bankrupt and said we give up, but we didn't. It's not what happens to you, it's what you learn from it and what you do about it. Here's some cash bonuses. Here's another little philosophy which kind of stuck with me, and this is based from a book by a guy called Colin Turner, who made quite a lot of money in network marketing. And he said, just because you can't see the way out doesn't mean there is no way out. And that kind of just stuck with me when I was 100 grand in debt, and I didn't always have the confidence back then and the belief that things would work out, but I just that just stuck with me. And someone asked me recently, about a year ago, why I didn't go bankrupt, and I think it was just because of that one little philosophy that I took from a book by someone else that had made a lot of money in this industry. And that's a copy of a bonus check that we got for maintaining Silver SED, which was pretty good. Now moving on, last year we set a goal to increase our income over 90 days. There's one of our checks in March, just over 4 grand a month. Next one 3 months later was 5,338 quid, so we managed to put well over 1,000, about £1,300 on our check, which is pretty phenomenal. And you know, bear that in mind. If you're just getting started in the business, you can absolutely increase your income by £1,000. You can go from naught to gold in 3 to 4 periods and put at least £1,000 to £1,500 on your check. If you're already in the business and you're already established in the business, you can do the same thing. You've just got to go out and sponsor 15 to 20 people front line, and that will do that for you. Now this is a recent check to bring you up to date, and this is to show people how well it can turn out. This is one of our bigger checks. I think we've had another one since then, which is a little bit bigger. Our period finishes on Thursday, and we anticipate getting a 7 grand check on Thursday. So from 100 grand of debt, with people threatening to take away my furniture and repossess my house, to being debt free, having no one chasing me for money, and lots of other benefits, but a residual income of, well, it's probably now over 70 grand a year. Pretty amazing turnaround if you're prepared to stay the course. Next one I got to tell you about is, this is someone who you probably all know. This is Abby. I think she is on this webinar tonight. And I'm just going to tell you a bit of a story about how I sponsored Abigail into the business. She was actually a customer of ours, and I asked her one day if she knew anyone who would be interested in making extra money, and she said to me her boyfriend would be interested. And to cut a long story short, he didn't join, but she did. And so there's another little tip for you. Make sure you ask all of your customers, do they know anybody who would be interested in making extra income? And even if they don't join, they may refer you to other people. But if they do join, you might be just surprised one day about what happens, because she got involved in the business, and when I was giving her the kit and the catalogues, she said to me, what if I don't like it? Can I get my money back? Is there a money back guarantee? So I said, yes, there is a money back guarantee, which I don't normally talk about. And I said, you know, you've got 14 days, and if you did change your mind, you know, you could get your money back, but there's no point in doing it for 14 days. It takes time to build. But she said, well, I'll give it the 14 days. And I thought that was really negative. I thought it was a very negative thing to say. And I remember coming out of her little flat in Baildon thinking, where do I get these people from, you know? But look at her now. She's Executive Cup winner. And the reason for relating that story to you is simply this, is you don't know who is going to join your business in 3 days time, or 3 weeks time, or 6 months, or 3 years, and you have no idea about who that person can become if we put them in a positive environment for the next 5 years. You have absolutely no idea. You may not know how good they can become. But let me just show you how good Abby is now. She's a single parent, stay-at-home mum, and this is her last check for 4 weeks for part-time, £3,846 for 4 weeks, single parent, stay-at-home mum, and this month it should be higher, should be over 4k. She may well even move up the pay plan this period as well and be in qualification for Dubai. But that in itself is an amazing Clean Easy success story, how people can work part-time. She has an 8-year-old little boy called Max. She works the business around her family commitments, and she's developed now a residual income of 50 grand a year part-time, with much better lifestyle and income than she could have possibly dreamed of in the job world. So I hope what I'm trying to do is give you some food for thought, and at this point it's a good idea maybe to ask you this question: can you see the future? Have you got a vision for your future? Are you spending some time developing your vision for a better future? I think it's really, really important that you develop a long-term, persistent, optimistic outlook about your future. You have every reason to be optimistic in this business. But I'm just going to tell you a story. There's a great story I love about a guy who went to see a clairvoyant, a medium, because he was a bit down on his luck and he was a bit skint, didn't have much money coming in, and he got a bit down in the dumps. So he goes to a clairvoyant and he says to the clairvoyant, look, can you please tell me what my future holds? And the clairvoyant looked at him and she said, yes, I can tell you. She said, you're going to be fed up and miserable and poor until you reach the age of 45. And he said, oh really? He said, oh. He said, what happens then? He asked, you know, hopefully. And she looked at him and she said, then you get used to it. And I love that story because it's basically a true representation of how most people live their lives. Most people just settle for what they've got. They give up. They give up on their aspiration. They give up on their dreams and their goals that they had when they were teenagers, when they left school, when they first got married. They just get bogged down in the daily grind and they give up. Well, I'm basically just someone who didn't give up. That's all. There's nothing special about me, but I didn't give up. I just thought, well, if I keep working at this thing, other people are making 10 grand a month, 15 grand a month, 20 grand a month. I'm just going to give it my best shot, and I'm never ever going to quit. And anybody on this webinar tonight can make that decision if you really want to. But what I would advise you to do is to get a better vision of your future. And really what that involves, I think, is you deciding and spending some time, and if you're a couple in the business, do it together, but you've really got to decide what's really important to you. What is the most important thing, and what would you focus your energy on to try and change or try and develop. And I'm going to show you now a picture of what was something that was really important to us, and that was our children. And this is my second son. My oldest son was in that first picture I showed you right at the beginning. My oldest son is now a trainee management accountant. He's a bean counter and he's doing okay. But this is my second son, and my second son kind of lived in his brother's shadow for quite a while, and his teachers told us that he used to struggle a lot and he wasn't very organised, and he used to turn up to classes without the right books, and he wasn't really good at maths, and they kind of categorised him or labelled him as below average. And when we got into the business, he was actually in a private school, but we had to take him out of there and put him in the local state school. And one of the things that we decided to do very early on in the business, as a result of a conversation I had with someone in a previous network who told me that it would be really worthwhile putting my kids in a positive environment, we made a decision that we would educate our children privately. And Ryan, my son, goes to a school where the fees are actually 10,650 quid a year, and he's coming into his last 6 months, and he went from being in, after his first year in that school, he was put in the lowest group for English, which absolutely staggered me because he read loads of books. And for 4 years we went to that school, to the parent-teacher consultations, to be told that he wasn't doing very well, that he was struggling, that he was this, that and the other, and we just said, well, we'll just keep doing it, we'll just see what happens. And then it all changed about a year ago, and they said to us a year ago that he was doing really well and everything was going to work out great, and apparently he's on track. His target grades are 3A stars at A level, and they're telling him that he should apply to Oxford or Cambridge. So what I would say to you, the reason why I relate that story to you is not so that I can kind of, like, you know, bask in the reflected glory. It's not about that. The reason why I tell you that story is you need to just decide what's really important to you, and then you need to do one thing and one thing only. You need to refuse to believe or other people that say it can't be done, right? And you need to basically decide never ever to give up on the things that are most important to you, because if you stay the course in this business, the business will change your life. Okay, let's go back to recognition. A couple of weeks ago, Karen was organising our daughter's party, and she was rushed off her feet, and I was busy plodding along as I normally do, and she said to me that we'd run out of recognition certificates and she didn't have time to get any more because she was organising the party. So I said, don't worry, I'll do it, and off I go to get some recognition certificates. Now at this time I was on a diet of fasting, and one of the benefits of this diet is you're supposed to get some amazing mental clarity. And I was driving off to get these frames actually for the certificates, and I decided as I was driving along I didn't really want to go to the shop where we go for certificates, so I thought, what I'll do is I'll just go, and I drove straight to the Mercedes garage, and I decided to buy a Merc. Anyway, I couldn't get the Merc, it didn't really happen, so I went to another garage, and then straight away I bought one of these. Now at the time I thought I was buying a BMW 320, but it turns out it was a bigger engine. It was a 3 litre, not a 2 litre. I haven't really got time to go into that story, but again what it proves is that if you want to change anything in your life, if you want to change your weight, you can change your weight. If you want to change your bank balance, you can change your bank balance. If you want to change the car you drive, you can change the car you drive. If you want to change the schools your children go to, you can change the schools your children go to. You can change anything you put your mind to if you give it time and you refuse to settle for average. So the conclusion of this training, as I just come to a close here, is point number one: you must work on yourself. You must work on yourself. And if you're not into Jim Rohn, you just need to get as much Jim Rohn as you can. He's probably the most influential person I've read and listened to that helped me the most, especially in the early days of the business. So you must work on yourself. You must develop, you must self-educate in the business. And education comes from a Latin word which means to draw forth or draw out, which kind of implies that you already have the necessary abilities, but they're inside you, but you need to draw them out. So you need to self-educate. You must have written goals and plans, and then you must stick to those plans and stick to the system of your successful upline and never deviate from that system or that plan. And that's a key thing. So there's 3 things that you can take away, and if you take those things away and you put them into your business, they will change your life. And then just moving on, one more, you must give it your best. I understand what it's like to lack confidence. I understand what it's like to have serious challenges, and if you're not confident of your own ability or you're not confident of the business, you can deal with that because you can make a decision to be determined instead and give it your best. And then one more thing that you need to do is you need to resolve, and you need to resolve to do whatever it takes. And resolve just basically means that you're going to make a decision, and I invite you all to make a decision never to give up on your dreams, never to give up on your aspirations, and to do whatever you have to do to come out the other side of the challenges that are in front of you. And if you're wondering, if you are new to the business, sometimes people ask me, how long should you give it? How long should you work hard? Is it going to be really worth all that effort? How long should you do it? And there's only one answer to that question, and I'm gonna finish on this answer. The answer is the only answer and the best answer that I could come up with, which is what I resolved to do a long time ago, and the answer is, ladies and gentlemen, the answer is until you reach the point where you're satisfied with what you've achieved in the business, and never before. You cannot put a deadline on your success in anything, but you'd be crazy to put a deadline on your success in Clean Easy, because if all you ever do is resolve now to stay the course and work at getting better, the business will absolutely change your life forever. And with that, I will now hand you back to Andy Boswell. Thank you for listening. I hope that's of value to you, and I'll see you all at the top.